Well, welcome back, everybody, to a very chilly and nasty overcast day here in Florida. So I didn't know this bad weather was going to stick around 2 days in a row. I thought it was going to be sunny today. So I knocked out the siding yesterday, and we're moving inside today to do some work while it stays cold. So I recently made a trip to Home Depot, and they had some wood furring strips for an excellent price, like $2 and something right there. I think is what I paid for those. And I had to dig through a huge stack to find ones that were actually straight and not full of bark and everything else. But this is what's on today's game plan. So I apologize for it being dark in here. It's still early in the morning, but today we're going to start prepping this ceiling. All those furring strips are going up there because where this blocking is, I'll show you once we get on the lift, is uneven. So I want to fur out from these nice straight purlins that are running this way that attach to the steel trusses. And we're going to basically drop the ceiling 3/4 of an inch and give us a nice flat surface to attach our tongue and groove pine to. All right, so here we are up in the loft, and this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to show you the problem I'm running into. As you can see, my blocking everywhere sticks down. Sometimes it's flush, a lot of times it sticks down up to 1/4 of an inch. And I've had people say, hey, why don't you get a planer, plane all that down, sand it down. If you look at the sheer amount of blocking, that's every piece running this direction, I would be here all day. And I would make one heck of a mess. So a quick, easy way, although there is a little expense involved, is to purchase some furring strips. And I've got those for cheaper than what a planer would cost, but yeah, I know you get to keep the planer after the job's done. For example, look right there at that lip. So if anyone's curious, I'm taking the width between the truss and the wall and dividing it by 5. And the reason I'm doing by 5 is because I know I want to be at least 24 inch on center or less for my nail spacing for my tongue and groove pine. And where I got that number is from friends that are in the industry that put up a lot of this stuff. Now, the good news is because I'm using wide 1x4s, I'm only 18 inches in between each 1x4. So I'm getting around 19 to 20 inch nail spacing instead of every 2 feet with the way that I'm spacing these out right here. So I feel pretty comfortable with that, especially being that I may be able to get 2 nails in per 1x4. So, we are complete. That took several hours to do, but we have everything nice and complete and ready now. So, I got to looking at some of this other blocking. I mean, look at cases like that right there. Almost 3/4 of an inch off with that blocking. So these fern strips were absolutely critical. One other thing worth mentioning. So the reason a level ceiling is so critical with tongue groove pine, think about this. So you've got, the reason it's called tongue groove pine, you've got a groove and you've got a tongue where it laps and goes in. And then you see that little decorative groove on the outside, that V. So if you've got a bunch of boards with a groove running this way and the ceiling's doing this and the board's following it, well, guess what? When you go to put that next one in, this groove needs to be as flat and level as possible. Otherwise, you're going to have a nightmare of a time working this tongue in, because this next board's coming in your hand, it's coming straight. And if this one's nailed to the ceiling and following an uneven ceiling, you're going to have to fight the entire day bending and putting a board, trying to get those tongue and grooves to line up. So spending the time to strip out a ceiling like this and get it nice and level. I've been looking at it the whole way. These purlins are very straight, so I have good lumber, luckily, and because they actually rest on top of these steel trusses, the steel trusses are true. So I've got a much better chance of getting a level ceiling, again, going to the purlins than I do the blocking that was just slapped in. You can see some of it 3/4 of an inch off. I would be here probably for days trying to just level the blocking out. So it's more worth my time to spend a little bit of money on these fern strips and install those. So speaking of these fern strips, I have a question for you. I had one of you viewers reach out to me about a local sawmill here that just does private lumber, unstamped lumber. So I have a question for any of y'all that may know the legal side of this, the real deal in code. Can I actually use unstamped lumber from a private mill for stripping like this? I don't believe you can for anything structural. It has to have that stamp on it and be certified. That makes sense. Is fir stripping before you put a ceiling up structural? I'm not so sure, because you can get an excellent deal on 1x4s from these private mills. And if I ever strip and do the porch ceiling, that's probably what I'll go after, unless some of y'all tell me that no, it must absolutely be stamped lumber. And by stamped lumber, I mean it'll have certain codes and designs on it. You know, these lumber mills meet a stringent guideline, and they get a stamp as a result that they can put on their lumber saying, hey, it's been tested and met a certain amount of qualifications and whatever all that entails. And yes, I know you're supposed to use stamped lumber in a home, but again, for non-structural things, I don't know that that's structural. I think I may be okay. Now, I wound up getting a killer deal on these. Wood is flying up, but these are just rough sawn strips. And like I said, they were $2 something at Home Depot. I'm sure they've already went up now. So I decided I'd go ahead and get stamped lumber, at least for doing the ceiling in the house, but for future projects in the porch, I'm curious to hear y'all's thoughts on that. All right, relatively short and boring episode, but this was a critical step I did not want y'all to miss. And all I'm waiting for now is some warm weather days to poly coat all that 1x6 tongue groove pine. And as soon as that dries, we'll start cutting it and slapping it up. I think it'll be a relatively straightforward process. It's just handling a lot of lumber. Yeah. All right, well, thank y'all so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next episode.